Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined in the studio today by Ali Moreno. We did a nice public service for you today. We watched the Nations League final, so you didn't have to. We'll be talking about that later on in the show. But first, let's welcome in, shall we? Frank Leboeuf is with us, as is Luis Garcia. Julien is with us as well, as it looks like PSG have got their new manager, Juls, Luis Enrique. Is this right?
Yeah, it's almost done now. Final details to be sorted out. We knew that he was on the shortlist, and he was really the first one that they spoke at length with. And then Julian Nagelsmann seems that he overtook him, and Nagelsmann was in the driving seat, certainly, to get the job. And then finally, those talks broke down. I think in the end, Nagelsmann was not too happy with the conditions of the job, the length of the contract, all that kind of things. And I think in Qatar, they kind of lost patience a little bit. And then Luis Enrique, who's always a close second, let's put it that way, to Nagelsmann, then came back into the fort, really. And I think Luis also maybe wanted to see previously, like in the last 2-3 weeks, even before that, what kind of other options he would have, other clubs looking for managers. I think when he saw the Chelsea job going to Pochettino, already that was a bit of a blow to him. So then I think he thought that PSG was probably the best that he could get this summer, and that it could be a really good job, interesting job. And for PSG, there's a lot of things that they liked about him, the personality, even if he's not always easy to work with, but they like the strong personality. They like the very clear identity and style of football. And the fact that he's a winner. We mentioned the other day his 2015 Barcelona team as the best in the treble history. And I think that's what they liked. And let's not forget, he was the Barca manager who also got that incredible remontada against PSG. So he ticked a lot of the boxes.
Jules, with your PSG TV hat on, are you happy?
I'm very happy.
How long will you be happy? I feel like you're happy every time you get a new manager, and then 3 or 4 months in, you refuse to say their name.
Yeah, he might become the Spanish guy very soon. I give you that. However, for now, we're happy. I'm happy. I think you need a strong guy there, and we saw previous managers not really being able to, let's put it that way, able to keep their philosophy, to keep their methods of working, because they felt they had to compromise. I don't think there would be any compromising done with Luis Enrique. This is not the kind of guy he is, not like a Pochettino, for example. So he would be tough, he would be straight there, he would be the Luis Enrique that we've seen at Barcelona, that we saw with the national team. Okay, we can say that he hasn't coached a club, a team on a daily basis for 6 years now, which may be a long time. But he will come with his ideas, with that philosophy that we mentioned. His teams play really lovely football. Sometimes they maybe lack a little bit of cutting edge. Certainly that was the case with Spain. However, that the style of football is going to be good. He's going to be very determined, because that's the kind of guy he is. So I think we're in for a ride, but it should be a positive one.
Why is it going to be positive when everything else has been so negative, Frank, no matter who's been in charge?
Well, because maybe Luis Enrique has a past, and the last time I saw somebody dealing very well with the dressing room, it was Laurent Blanc at the time, and after him, Carlo Ancelotti. It worked pretty well with Laurent Blanc. They followed his idea. It was the beginning, of course, of the Qatar era, let's say. But Luis Enrique is known as a very good player. He's known as somebody who's successful and with a big character and a real leader. So hopefully the dressing room is going to follow him. Hopefully the chairman will let him dealing with all the with all the players and taking the decision. It's the only way it can work for Paris Saint-Germain. I think it's a very good choice for Paris Saint-Germain. And I think for me, personally, a better choice than Nagelsmann, because with a bigger authority and, again, with the bigger past.
Luis, how's he going to cope when one of his players goes above him to the chairman, to the owner, complaining that they don't like the way that he's setting things up?
Yeah, no, why are you saying that? And I think that Jules just mentioned it. Luis Enrique, he's got a very specific character. He's got a big personality. He knows how to deal with the players, and he's not afraid to confront them. I think that he's a manager who knows what he wants. He's going to try to put his style on the team. Aggressive, intensity is going to be higher. Try to go higher on the pitch to get the ball, be very aggressive in attack, and much more. He doesn't care if you are called Mbappe or Verratti or Marquinhos. I don't care. You have to give me what I want. If not, I will find someone else who is going to give me. He has won everything as a player and as a manager. He's been in everything situation, in good ones and in bad ones. So arriving to PSG is not going to feel afraid of the challenge. He's going to go with that personality that he's been using and dealing with for the past 10 years. And definitely, I think that Paris Saint-Germain, if finally we see him getting in, is going to receive a fantastic manager that can change probably the way and the mentality of the players to maybe, why not, challenge for that European competition that they are looking for.
If the players' mentality hasn't changed throughout a number of coaches, why have they changed this time around?
Because they haven't been able to achieve the results that they were expected to do. And at some point, there's got to be a realization from the players' perspective that, you know what, it's not working our way. Maybe we pay attention to the guy who's in front of us. And in the case of Luis Enrique, there may be a sense of respect that there wasn't there before. Now, Luis Enrique, looking at this position, would have known that these players have taken a scenic route, that they don't really care about what the manager has had to say because there hasn't been a support from the front office. And so, therefore, the players feel like they're running the club. He knows this coming in. So he knows full well that his first objective is to get the control of the locker room, to get the control of the players. This is the straight line that we're going into. This is how we're going to be successful. These are the objectives, and this is your role specifically. This is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to do. And this is how we're going to be successful. You don't like it? Let me know, and we'll address it. I'm going to be the one making the decisions. I'm going to be the one in charge. And in order for him to take that position, the most critical part here is that he has indeed the support from the front office. So that when things happen that you just mentioned, that they go above him to complain, they say, no, take it down to the manager. He's the one making the decisions. That there isn't any doubt or any question as to who is making the decisions, who gets on the field, who stays on the field, who comes off the field. If it is Luis Enrique that is making the decision, and he's allowed to work, and he's given the support, and he's given the power to make this decision, even if they are controversial decisions, PSG is going to be better off.
How does this, if at all, affect the future of Mbappe, Jules?
It's a good question. I expect them to have a chat very, very quickly. Like we've been saying, Kylian, I think, is going to run down his contract. Could a really good season under Luis Enrique change his mind about extending? Maybe, or certainly the club will hope for that, for sure. I mean, let's say they get really close to the Champions League and just, I don't know, miss out. Then maybe we'll feel, okay, the dynamic is positive. We're on the way up. Luis Enrique is clearly building something really good here. Maybe I can stick around for another year or two. But again, it's a long shot. However, for Neymar, this could be a different story because Neymar under Luis Enrique is the best Neymar. He was amazing, of course, in those Barca years. Again, going back to that 2015 treble. So in terms of Neymar refining his form, his best form, playing with confidence, playing with the support of the manager, with the staff, all of that can change the dynamic very much so. And even for PSG, because now we kind of know that it would be hard to let Neymar go to the Premier League or somewhere. It would be difficult this summer, I think, and PSG know that by now. They've tried enough. Pini Zahavi has tried enough. And there's not much the response that they were expecting. Luis Enrique arriving, suddenly you can keep Neymar. It would be a happy Neymar to work again with Luis Enrique. Luis Enrique, albeit in 2015, so that's 8 years ago, but got a really good Neymar playing. So could that happen again in Paris? We'll see. But that's certainly, again, for Neymar, this is the best choice of manager that could have been happening this summer.
He's notoriously quite grumpy with the press. Certainly he was in Spain, Jules. How is that relationship going to be, do you think, with regards to the French media?
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Of course, he's ready to try new things. We saw that at the World Cup when he went on, streaming on Twitch to talk about the team, to talk about his training sessions, to talk about everything that he wanted. His cycling, his triathlons, all of that. He's a very interesting character for sure. I don't know how well Luis knows him. But from the outside, and I've only been in a few press conferences there and there, not much more than that, but he looks interesting. But you're right, he could be ruthless, he could be a bit grumpy. If he doesn't want to talk, he won't give you much. But I think in France, he will have to be quite clever in the way he handles the press, L'Équipe, France Football, Le Parisien, you know, all those people who follow the club so closely every day. It's not a tabloid culture, but at times they can be very critical. And I think for some managers we saw it cost them a lot. And for Luis Enrique, who will have to learn the language quickly, I think, to kind of get on the right side of the press, that would be very important. But he will also have to be very political and intelligent in how he handles the press, for sure.
What's the first phrase he should learn in French, do you think,
Here we
Frank?
What do you think, Jules? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the swear words, let's go that way, for sure. But he won't say the swear words publicly in his press conference or anything.
Right.
But the dynamic is different, and Frank knows it. Like, L'Équipe is obviously a very important newspaper, but in Spain, when you're the Barcelona manager, you know, Mundo Deportivo and Sport are also very important, whether you brief them off the record, whether you give them a few things there and there. I think in Le Parisien and L'Équipe, certainly you've got two kind of equivalent a little bit of the Catalan newspapers. So he will know how to deal with them. He'll be used to that. I guess in French, he will be focused first on learning the words that he needs tactically for the players to implement his ideas. And then for the press, he can always find a way. And there's a few guys for those newspapers who speak Spanish anyway, who follow the team on a daily basis. So it would be okay. Nothing would be lost in translation. But you're right. It's a very important part of that job because the Paris press can be very ruthless as well.
Very. Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.